Of today's daf yomi is Bava Basra Bava Basra 34. Today's daf yomi, we're going to start on the bottom of Lama Gimel Mabez 33b, around 10 lines from the bottom. The Gemara has the following circumstance: Ahuda Amro Lechavre. So a person says to his friends. Ahuda Amro Lechavre. A person says to his friend, my boss Bahayara, he says to his friend, what are you doing in my property? He says, what are you doing here? You have no right to be here. He says, I bought it from you, and I've been here for the years of Chazak. I mean, I've been here 3 years. But here's where the case gets interesting. I see Chad Sahada the Achot Shani. You only brought one witness. Normally, in order to establish yourself as having been there for 3 years, you need to bring two witnesses. In this case, he only brings one witness. I see Shani. In essence, he wasn't able to bring the two witnesses. Now the Gemara says, Hainu Nasla de Rabbi Abba. This is similar to the Nasla. The Nasla is a block of silver, a block of gold. This is referring to the Naska de Rabbi Abba. This is similar. The Rashbam says it's not that they're learning one case or the other, as the Gemara itself is going to point out the differences, but it's similar to the case of Rabbi Abba. What's the case of Rabbi Abba? So again, what's our case here? Our case here is the person says, you're on my property. He says, I have a chazaka, but he only has one witness. So what's the case of Rabbi Abba? The case of the Naska of Rabbi Abba tells us the following circumstance. So in the case of Rabbi Abba, the Naska of Rabbi Abba was the Hugavra. There was a man, the Chotav Naska Mechavre. He went over and he grabbed a hold of a block of silver from his friend. So also coming to Rabbi Ami, the guy who had been the previous holder of the silver, came to Rabbi Ami, and Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Abba Kamei, and Rabbi Abba was sitting there. Some say Rabbi Abba was the student, some say he was the teacher, but it seems he was like the student. And he came in front of Rabbi Abba, and Rabbi Abba was sitting there. The guy who had the piece of metal brought one witness that indeed this person had seized it from him. And the person who seized it doesn't deny that he took it, which is significant. He doesn't deny the fact. I'm like, I took it and I grabbed a hold of it. But vididi chatvi, what I grabbed was my block of silver. It was mine. What I took belonged to me, and so therefore I was entitled to take it. So I'm Rabbi Ami. So Rabbi Ami says, we're on the top of Lamadal Amanaf. How should we adjudicate this case? How should the judges adjudicate this case? The Gemara is going to suggest three possibilities, and I'll read the Rashbam in a moment. First, we'll read the Gemara. Should we say he has to pay back the block of silver? Like a trace out, there aren't two witnesses that say he took it. And should we say the patre? Should we say he's exempt? There's one witness that says he took it, so we're not going to make him exempt because there's one witness. So if that's the case, should we make him take an oath? Amar milchtav chatva. He said you took it. He said v'kiven amar de chatva, and since he admits he took it, avlei gazlan, he's going to be considered like a robber, not in the sense that he robbed it, but just like a robber is not able to swear. So therefore, he can't swear because he's not denying the fact. An oath as if you would be denying it, but he's saying he took it. He's just saying, I took it, but I had a reason to take it. Let's look at the Rashbam here. Rashbam says, also the first case, if there be two witnesses that would testify shachataf, then we would make him pay. Because a person is not believed to say A person is not believed to say he grabbed something from his friend, but say I took it, unless he has witnesses that it was his. So if he doesn't have witnesses that it was his, he has to return it because we're going to put the money in its presumptive status. And if one person has it, you can't take it away from it without proof. So that's the first case. If there's two witnesses that he took it, we make him return it because he's a robber, because he can't take it from somebody without a proof, and he's not believed that he says it unless he has witnesses. But let's say the second scenario is if there are no witnesses, if there were no witnesses at all, if he says, yeah, I took it, but what I took was mine, then we'll believe him. Because then he'd have a migu. We could have given a better lie and say, I never took it in the first place. And so therefore we would believe him. Because we see that the person who took it was the presumptive status. So if there are two witnesses, he'd have to return it. If there are no witnesses, he could get to keep it. But now our case, now that there's one witness that he took it, now if he would deny it and say, I didn't take it, if he would deny it and say, I never took it, then then he would be able to take an oath and deny the claim of the one witness. Because one witness could force you to take an oath. But the problem is, in those three ways, it will be simple. But the problem here is, there's one witness that says he took it, but he's not contradicting him. He's admitting that he took it, but he's saying it was mine. So therefore, how do we look at this case? Because you can only do the oath. Look at the Rashbam on Lishtabe. Why can't we take it? Why can we not make him take an oath? So the Rashbam writes, we can't take this oath. There's one witness says you took it. He can't take an oath and says he didn't take it. He says he snatched it. And the witness obligates him to take an oath that he didn't snatch it. That's what the verse says. When one witness makes you take an oath, it's only to deny what this witness claims. But he's admitting what the witness claims. He's just saying that there's a reason why I did it. Because it says in the verse, he can deny what the witness said. But in this case, he can't take an oath because he's like a gazlan, he's like a robber with respect to oaths. Meaning to say, just like a robber can't take an oath, so too he can't take an oath. He can't take an oath that he took what belonged to him, because that's not the oath that's being thrown upon him by the one witness. So he can't be exempt because he can't do a migo here. So what do we do under these circumstances? So we're now back to the Gemara. The Gemara says, Amar Rabbi Abba, so this is the case where a person has to take an oath. Why does he have to take an oath? In order to prove that it was his. But he can't take an oath. So therefore, this is the case of anytime where a person is obligated to take an oath, but he can't take an oath, then he has to pay. And so therefore, the Gemara is saying that this is like the case of where the person, the piece of silver of Rabbi Abba, where again, what are the two cases? In the first case, a person comes to the property and he says, "You're in my land," and the guy says, "I'm living here for 3 years, so I'm allowed to be here." But then he only produces one witness. And the Gemara wants to connect this to the case of Rabbi Abba, where a person snatches a piece of silver from another person. And there's one witness that says he took it. But the guy says, yeah, I took it, but it was mine. So Gemara wants to say that just like in the case of the land, the guy says it's mine, and he only has one witness to it. So too here in this case of the silver, where he says it's mine, And since he can't take an oath in that case, he has to return it. So too in the case of the land, since he can't take an oath, he has to return it. So that's why the Gemara wants to compare the cases. So the Gemara says, Amar Abaye. Abaye says, me dummy. Abaye says to Rabbi Abba, no, the two cases are not the same. Hasam Sahada Uruye Kaasi. In the case of the Naska de Rabbi Abba, the silver piece of Rabbi Abba, the witness came and the witness says, you snatched it from this other person, you stole it. That's ruining the guy's chazaka. He's ruining the presumptive status. The person who took it is ruining his claim. And so therefore, that's why, since he can't take it out, he has to return it. Because if there would be another witness that would come and support the first witness that the person snatched the silver away from the other person, we would take away the silver because there'd be two witnesses. But in this case over here, the guy who's living on the land and brings one witness that's been living there with Su'uye Ka'asi. That witness is supporting him, that he has a chazak on this land. And so therefore, and so therefore, if another witness would come, it will be supported because he now have two witnesses that he has a chazaka. So the two cases are not the same. So we're not going to kick this person off the land if he has one witness to a chazaka based upon the comparison to the case of Rabbi Abba. Eli Damya, Rabbi Abba, if you want to say the case of Rabbi Abba is similar to something, we're going to say it's similar to the case of Rachad Sada or Tarte Shani or Peire. It's going to be similar to the case of where there was one witness that you took the land for 2 years and you took it for its fruits. What's this case? Meaning to say that he only has one witness that it was on this land and he had the right to eat the fruits there for 2 years. So the law is that under those circumstances, the land has to return to the owner. But with respect to the fruits, if there were no witnesses about the fruits at all, then he could take an oath that he had the right to eat those fruits and it'll be exempt. And he's believed to allowed to eat the fruits on the basis of a migu. That migu means if he was going to lie, he would have said a better lie. So because he could have claimed that he didn't eat it at all. And if there were two witnesses that said he had eaten the fruits for 2 years, he'd have to pay. But if there's one witness, that's like the case of Rabbi Abba said, since he can't take an oath to contradict the witness that he didn't eat from the fruits because he admitted to eating, but he's just saying he ate his. Therefore, since he can't take an oath, therefore he has to pay under those circumstances. So the case of Rabbi Abba is similar to the case where a person is living on the land for 2 years and he has one witness that he's living on the land for 2 years, and he says he ate the fruits, but he says it was his. So since he can't take an oath that it was his, because he's not denying what the claim was against him, the claim was that you ate the fruits. He says, yeah, I ate the fruits, but it was mine. So therefore, he can't swear, so he has to pay. Now we go up to the next, the Lamadam base, 34b. The Gemara tells us as follows. Ha'u arba minsu ala beitre. So there was a ship that the two people were fighting about. Nobody had in their possessions. So nobody's a muhsak here. The reason why we know nobody has it, because we'd already had back at the very beginning of Mitzia that each one is holding their talis, and they both argue. So we say you get to the part that you're holding to, and you get to the part that you're holding to. But in this case, we can't say that. So in this case, we're saying nobody has it at all. Who arba mitzole betray. Hi Amr Dihi. Hi Amr Dihi. Each one claims it's my ship. So then what do they do? One of the people, let's call him Ruvain, comes to the court and he says, Tifsua admaisne sahadi dididehi. So one of them comes to the court and he says, I'm worried that the other person is going to sell it. And so therefore, he asks the court to take it and hold it. He asked the court to hold on to it until he could bring proof. He asked the court to hold on to it until he could bring proof that it's mine, because he's worried the other person is going to sell it. He's not concerned here, the Rashbam points out, that it's a friend, that the other person will come along and seize it, because since they're already arguing over it, it's not going, and then if somebody else comes along and sees it, doesn't mean anything, because we know that he just grabbed it there forcefully, and he doesn't really have a chazaka. But he's still concerned he's going to sell it, and he's not going to rely upon the fact, well, if he sells it, then the court will get rid of it from him, that the court will go and seize it, because even if the witnesses will come and say it's his, the purchaser can claim, you sold it to me, and then it'll be believed because he has it now. So therefore, he says, no, I don't want it to be sold. So now he comes to the court, he says, you grab it. So do we say tafsinan or lo tafsinan? Does the court grab it or not? What's the question here? Miuema, the Rashbam says, should we say, do we say that the court should seize it? Miuema, the tafsiwa bezdin daha, ilom mishkach sahade hadrinan umafkinan la. So do we say let the court seize it, and if they don't find witnesses, if this guy doesn't bring witnesses, he'll just put it back like it was originally, and nobody loses anything by the court seizing it. Or perhaps do we say court should not seize it because maybe they won't find any witnesses, and then the court won't be able to return it because it doesn't know who to return it to, and so therefore the true owner of the ship will lose. Because if the court would just leave it untouched, then we would say a principle which we're going to get to, Olim Ugaver Balasfina, that called Olim Kvar, that the stronger one win. And then it's possible if the court didn't take it, that the stronger one would have win. And so therefore, he's saying, what should the court do here? Should the court seize it, and then it could always return it? Or maybe once the court seizes it, it can't return it at all. So Rafuna says, Tafsina, the court should seize it. Because if the guy won't bring the proof, they'll just drop it back off, and there's no problem. Look at Rashbam. Rafuna Savar Tafsina. Sphere the Amar Rav Papa, like we're going to see Rav Papa later on, Mafkinan, that the court, if once it seizes it, can just drop it back if it doesn't find the true owner. Rav Yehuda says it shouldn't seize it because once the court seizes it, if it doesn't know who to give it to, it has to keep it. And so therefore the court should not seize it at all, because maybe this guy won't have any witnesses, he'll be a liar, and he just wants to make his friend lose money, because he knows that once the court seizes it, it won't be able to get rid of it. So Rav Huna says tafsinan, Rav Yehuda says lo tafsinan, Rav Yehuda says you don't seize it. Indeed, this person who asked the court to take it was unable to find witnesses. So then, since he went and he wasn't able to find witnesses, the other person said to the court, Afkua, okay, release it and put it in its initial state where there's a disputed ship and nobody has possession of it. And it'll be the Kol Da'alam Gvar. And then the law will be whoever is stronger will be victorious. What does it mean, Kol Da'alam Gvar? Whoever is stronger will be victorious. So the Rashbam says, Bein b'rayos b'mikoach, whether by proofs, he argues it's mine, he brings better proofs, even though neither one is conclusive, or b'koach, he just goes out and takes it. So he says, release it and let the stronger one win. As we're about to see, Rav Nachman rules that way under certain circumstances. The Gemara asks the question, mafkinan or mafkinan? Does the court release the ship and just drop it? Because at least in this case, the true owner might get it. Or maybe the court does not release it, because since the court now is in the possession of money that belongs to a specific person, they can't release it, because maybe they'll be releasing money that belongs to a person, and they won't be releasing it to that person. So maybe what they have to do there is they have to wait until they'll know for sure who to return it. So the Gemara says, Rav Yehuda says, Lo Mafkinan, the court does not release it because since they have the money, Rashbam says, Kivin Shemat, so Mitchila, Shaladas Kain Tafsu, Shem Lo Yavo Edim Yachziru, the called Olam Dvar. Meaning to say that the first position is Hilchasa Lo Tafsinan. The first position is the court should not take it because it's going to bring them into a bad position. Vahecha de Tafas, and where they did release it, where they did grab it, Lo Mafkinan. They should not release it. And the reason why they should not release it is because they have to wait until somebody owns it. And so basically the Gemara is posketing like Rav Yehuda. So now we see this principle of Kol Da'om Gvar as follows. Ze Omer Shalavosai. So this is based upon the ruling of Rav Nachman. Kol Da'om Gvar. One person claims the ship belongs to him because he got it from his father and he inherited it, but he has no evidence. And the other one says, Ze Omer Shalavosai. This other person says the ship belongs to him because he got it from his father, but he has no evidence. Amar Rav Nachman says, under these circumstances, Kol Da'olim Gvar. Let the stronger one live. Let the stronger one be victorious. Kol Da'olim Gvar. Whoever is stronger will be victorious. And this is a very controversial idea. Why are we saying this? So first of all, Rashbam is saying that he's either going to be victorious with physical, he'll be stronger physically, or also be stronger with better proofs. But either way, even if he brings the proof, it's not complete proofs, because obviously then he'll be victorious in the court. Also, the other question is, how long does he be victorious? So Rabbeinu Gershom says he's victorious until real witnesses come. But others say that means it's in his possession until real witnesses come. But the other guy can't seize it. But Tosfos seems to imply they could just, whoever can seize it on that day, and then the next guy can seize it the next day, which is like anarchy. But so why do we say this principle of Kol Da'olim Gvar? Because since we're not sure who is right, and we can't clarify it, therefore the court does not get involved. And the court leaves it for them, and whoever gets it will get it until the witnesses come and clarify it. So according to this approach, the Kovach Shiurim Rav Elchanan basically says Kol Da'olim Gvar is not a ruling of the court, but the court is removing itself from being involved in the ruling. And so therefore, even after one person will take it, if the next one will take it, he'd be able to. That's how Rav Elchanan explains Tosfos. However, the Rosh explains Kol Da'olim Gvar in the opposite way. He says Kol Da'olim Gvar means that the sages relied upon the fact that whoever was really correct, whoever was a true owner, would not stop to bring his proofs. He would continue to be moser nefesh, to dedicate himself to get back his property. And also the robber will be less inclined to work because he knows that eventually he's going to work so hard, and in the end the guy will bring proofs and get rid of it. So therefore, Kol Da'olim Gvar is the logical idea that the true owner will work harder for it. The Chazam Sofer and the Kovach Shiurim say that the Chazam Sofer says that Kol Da'olim Gvar is not that the court is removing itself from ruling, but rather it's the court's way of clarifying and finding the true owner, because this way the true owner will be victorious because he's going to work harder. So, and therefore in this case, the Rosh says, once a person gets it, we stop it right there. We're not going to say go back and forth. So that's the logic behind Rav Nachman's principle of Kol Da'olim Gvar. Gemara says, well, if that's the case, how come In this case, we rule called on Gvar. And how is this different from another case where we're going to say a principle called Shuda de Daine? And Shuda de Daine is tomorrow's daf. We'll continue now, but first I'll stop the recording because this is tomorrow's daf. So the Gemara says,